Hi all, my name is Lior, and I've been working on a bicycle for about a year, and so I just wanted to make a quick video to show where I'm at. And yeah, so I'll just go through some of the components, and then when it's done you can see it in all its final glory, but this is what we've got so far. So, the frame is made of chromoly steel tubes that I bought online. The tubes were cut to specifications that were designed by a guy up at 7 Cycles in Boston, which is a top-of-the-line custom bike company. So that's pretty cool. I did some woodwork for a friend who used to work there, so he was able to get that for me, which is pretty exciting. I'm probably not a good enough cyclist to know the difference, but fun to know. The tubes are put together with brass brays at the butts between 2 tubes. So those are called fillets when they're just joined together there. And then at the single lug that I have at the bottom bracket, I use silver braze because the silver braze has a lower melting point, lower viscosity, so it can just get right into the crevice between the bottom bracket lug and the tubes. So that's used in a few places, but mostly it's fillet brazed with the bronze braze. Sorry, not brass. And yep, so that's the sort of the basic frame. There are obviously some interesting parts to the frame. There's no seat tube. Or seat post. It's just a seat tube, and then it goes right onto the saddle rails using sort of a Walmart style fastening system that lets me adjust the angle but not the height. So unfortunately I'm not growing, so this is what we got. The rack is brazed right into the frame as well. It has, instead of the typical support that goes all the way down, because it is integrated right into the frame, it just has these supports to keep the panniers from going into the wheels. Usually I just have one on if I'm not on a tour. I designed and 3D printed a combo U-lock holder and fender. So between the rack itself and then the fender, it protects me from all the spray, which is nice. This is just a little tool bag. That was CNC'd and lasered, and obviously some leather and rivets. And then I actually put it in a vacuum chamber with BLO, boiled linseed oil, to get it super penetrated into the wood fibers to make it waterproof for a long time to come. I figured the bungee, was about the most versatile method for holding anything down that I could figure out. In terms of electronic stuff, there is a dynamo hub up in the front, and the power goes up the fork and then into the steer tube, where there's rectifier and capacitor and the various other components that give me DC power, and then charge battery to go to the light. And so that's pretty cool. The difficult part there is that the head tube, the light, is rotating in reference to the steer tube, so I need to make a slip ring to transfer the power from one side to the other, and then I'll probably have the controls just right under the stem because that's a relatively protected area. So working on that, and I'll just show you the components over here. So these are some of the components that I have sort of figured out, stripped from some other things. And then while we're over here, this is the beginnings of wooden handlebars. So that's a whole extensive project to replace the normal aluminum ones. The aluminum ones are obviously fine, but I figured to complete the trifecta of wood, it'd be cool to have wood. I haven't seen anyone else be able to do it, as I'm seeing for good reason. I've been able to complete these bends independently, but doing all 3 bends simultaneously has proven really difficult. So I'm steaming the wood, and it has to be green, and the grain can't have any run out, and a whole litany of things, and then using steel backing, the strapping to prevent the wood from blowing out in the back, because the wood can't sustain any tension, so it all has to be under compression. And then there's a change of plane bracket, or 2 of them, so that the wood can be bent around this jig in multiple directions. So still working on that. If it comes to it, I can do bent lamination, so doing thin strips and then epoxying them all together, which may be stronger and look just as cool, but I'll know it wouldn't be quite as technically challenging. So that's handlebars and lights. And let's see what else. So along the rims, I'm going to put some retroreflective glass beads, which is what they put on streets and signs, so that when light from you bounces off of it, it comes right back at you. So it will be reflective. So that'll be hopefully pretty cool. This is a 3D printed magnetic phone holder, which I would show you if my phone wasn't currently videotaping this. What else? So the frame is powder coated, and typically when you powder coat, you sandblast first to give the steel the best profile possible and bite for the powder to hold on to. I didn't want to do that because that kind of turns it white, which would defeat the purpose of using a clear powder coat. So I sanded it as best I could, and I guess time will tell how good of a job that does at maintaining adhesion. So we'll see there. There's a 1x setup. I never really found myself using the lowermost, anything but the lowermost gears in a multi-chainring bike, and hardly ever, leaving that. And so this is just a 1x, so one up front, and actually the ratios are about as good as any other bike in terms of the range that I get. I just don't get as many increments within that range. So I actually biked from here in New Haven up to Montreal, Canada, and through Vermont, and pretty nasty stuff there, and it was just fine. I mean, obviously problems, but in terms of the range of the gears, it was manageable. So that was cool to find out. I was actually hit by a truck back in April, and so had to bend the frame back into shape, luckily before powder coating it, and so there's some, beauty marks from being bent back into shape. So that will be a permanent reminder. So I think that is most of it. Obviously I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to make a more extensive video with all the brazing and all the other bits and pieces and the CNCing and designing the CAD models for the U-lock holder, fender. Something else interesting is I had to beef this up a bit to make it strong enough to hold this hefty lock. And what I'm hoping is that I have a friend who has access to a carbon 3D printer that chops up carbon fiber and lays it in the resin, and he'll be able to get me a print of this that will be substantially stronger. It'll be nice, so I don't risk that breaking, and lighter, because clearly that's what I care about here. So I guess what sort of ties this bike all together in my mind is it was meant to not have any compromises, right? I mean, I'm making this bike from scratch, and so the hope was to be able to sort of make a list of all of my wants and accomplish all of them without compromise. That was only really doable because I'm not racing on it, so it doesn't have to be super lightweight. But I think I got a lot of utility via the rack, not having a stealable seat tube saddle situation, obviously the built-in lights that I won't need to recharge, won't have to worry about taking off again so people don't take them, a bunch of other things, and then obviously a whole lot of just snaz factor. So I'm pretty excited with how it's coming along, and can't wait for it to be done in its entirety. So thanks so much for watching.